Have you ever wondered why the calmest women seem to hold the greatest power, the kind that makes a man question everything he thought he knew about control, love, and himself? She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't chase. She doesn't explain her silence. And yet, she leaves a trail of psychological tremors in the soul of any man who dares to underestimate her. Her stillness is not submission. It is restraint forged in fire. A woman like this doesn't merely speak. She echoes through a man's unconscious long after she's gone. She is not a storm in motion. She is the storm after the storm, the silence that follows destruction, the quiet that unsettles more than any scream ever could. Jung once said that the feminine is not just softness or receptivity. It is mystery, shadow, anima. The calm woman is not docile. She is dangerous because she has walked through her own darkness. She has sat beside her own chaos without flinching. She knows that emotions are visitors, not rulers. And in a world that demands noise, her silence is defiance. You see, men often fall in love with women they can't predict, but they obsess over the ones they can't penetrate psychologically. The calm woman is unreadable because she has made peace with her inner world. She's no longer ruled by external forces. Her value doesn't swing with a compliment or crash with an insult. She doesn't need to prove anything. She simply is. And that, for the insecure ego, is terrifying. In Jungian terms, she is the individuated woman, one who has reconciled with her shadow. She has met the part of herself that once feared abandonment, betrayal, rejection. And rather than suppress it, she integrated it. She stopped begging for validation and became the source. Her ego no longer drives her reactions. When he pulls away, she doesn't chase. When he returns confused, she doesn't perform. Her boundaries are not walls. They are sacred lines drawn in quiet confidence. And so she confuses men, because the average man, ruled by his unintegrated animus, is still looking for a woman to reflect back his idealized self-image, someone to adore him, to soften his edges, to soothe his wounds. But the calm woman is not here to complete him. She is here to reveal him. And when he projects his fantasies onto her, she doesn't absorb them. She mirrors them back. In her silence, he hears his own unresolved noise. In her gaze, he confronts the hollow parts of himself he's tried to hide behind status, conquest, and charm. This is why she becomes unforgettable. Not because she tried to be, but because her presence touched something archetypal, something ancient. She didn't entertain his ego. She disturbed it. She didn't ask for love. She invoked it. She didn't cling. She evaporated. And what is more psychologically haunting than a woman who disappears into the mist with her dignity intact? Her danger lies not in malice, but in mastery. She has mastered herself. Her calm isn't accidental. It is earned. It is what happens when a woman stops outsourcing her power and begins to sit inside her own skin like a temple. No man can own her because she is already claimed by herself. Her love is a choice, not a compulsion. And that choice becomes sacred, rare, and devastatingly magnetic. And if you, the listener, have ever been this woman, or are becoming her, you already know the weight of this power. You already know how many have tried to unravel you, provoke you, decode you. But you've learned the art of letting fools destroy themselves in the echo chamber of their own projections. You've learned that walking away in silence delivers a deeper message than begging ever could. You don't rage, you release. She is dangerous because she doesn't play roles. She has burned them all. The good girl, the pleaser, the chaser, the fixer. She has buried those versions and stood in the ashes until something timeless rose within her. Now she moves like poetry written in a dead language, beautiful, haunting, and impossible to fully grasp. And those who try to possess her, they're not met with resistance. They're met with stillness, and it is in that stillness that they collapse. Because they expected drama. They expected need. They expected to be chased. But she's too focused on her peace to compete for what doesn't see her worth. She knows that if he can't meet her in depth, he doesn't deserve access to her surface. The calm woman is the one who has stopped confusing chemistry with compatibility, chaos with passion, potential with reality. She doesn't argue her worth. She doesn't explain her intuition. She doesn't suffer fools just to feel less alone. She chooses silence, not because she has nothing to say, but because she knows it speaks louder. A man cannot own what he cannot understand. And the calm woman Rooted, aware, profoundly still, is a mystery he cannot solve because she does not come from the same emotional chaos he's used to dancing with. She's not the storm he knows how to tame. She is the ocean beneath it, deep, ancient, unmoved. And when he reaches for her with shallow hands, he finds himself swallowed by the vastness he once mistook for quiet. Jung understood that the feminine is not merely biological, it is archetypal. The calm woman becomes an embodiment of the divine feminine in her transcendent form. She is not maternal to broken men. She does not try to heal wounds that are not hers to carry. She knows the cost of self-betrayal and refuses to pay it again. Her calmness is not a lack of emotion. It is emotional sovereignty. She owns what she feels without demanding others do the same. Her boundaries are not walls. They are energetic truths, unnegotiable, unapologetic, unyielding. To the man still operating from his unexamined ego, this calmness can feel like rejection. He mistakes it for coldness, for disinterest. But it is neither. It is discernment. She has nothing to prove and no desire to perform. And for men addicted to attention, that is the ultimate deprivation. You see, when a woman no longer seeks to be chosen, she becomes the chooser. And that terrifies those who seek control through chaos. The calm woman has seen enough. She has learned the games, the breadcrumbing, the hot and cold, the empty promises. She knows the tricks, and she no longer bites. Her intuition is sharp because she has bled for it. She doesn't need proof. She feels the truth before it is spoken. And instead of confronting every lie, she simply vanishes. She leaves you to sit in the silence she once used to fill. This is the shadow work no one tells you about. The part where a woman chooses herself, even when it hurts. Where she allows the fantasy to die so that her truth can live. Where she sits in the ache of letting go and lets it purify her. She knows that clinging to someone who does not see her is the slowest kind of death. And she would rather grieve the illusion than suffocate in pretense. There is a sacred violence in this kind of transformation, not of harm, but of disruption. The calm woman becomes the death of the persona, of all the masks others try to place on her. She no longer fits into the boxes of girlfriend, muse, caretaker, savior. She becomes what Jung called the self, the totality of the conscious and unconscious mind united in wholeness. And from this place, she no longer reacts. She responds, not from pain, but from clarity. Not from fear, but from choice. If you've ever tried to manipulate a woman like this, you've already lost. Because your usual tools, jealousy, confusion, attention withdrawal, fall flat. They do not reach her. Her peace is not a performance, it is a fortress. She knows the cost of abandoning herself to keep someone else comfortable. And she refuses to go bankrupt for anyone's approval. And yet, men return to her, again and again, long after she has gone quiet. They try to resurrect the connection, hoping she's still the version who needed them. But she's not. She has evolved. She has returned to herself. Her love may still exist, but it is no longer offered freely. It is sacred now. And unless you've done your own shadow work, unless you've faced the darkness she's already made peace with, you won't find a way back in. Because she is not the prize at the end of a performance. She is the mirror. She reflects exactly what you are. If you approach her from ego, she'll vanish. If you approach her from depth, she might stay. But she will not chase. She will not shrink. She will not make herself easier to swallow just to soothe your pride. This woman doesn't want power over you. She wants power within herself. And once she finds it, nothing external can ever replace it. No sweet words, no grand gestures, no promises whispered in the dark. She knows the difference now between noise and truth, between attention and devotion, between desire and depth. And you, the one listening, perhaps you've been her, or you're becoming her. Perhaps you're learning to value your silence more than their validation. Maybe you're waking up to the reality that peace is more seductive than chaos ever was. That calm isn't boring, it's rare, and rare is powerful. She walks differently now, not for attention, not for allure, but because she carries herself from within. Her movements are no longer dictated by the gaze of others. Her calm is not an act of indifference, but the result of radical self-possession. There is nothing louder than a woman who does not speak just to be heard. And there is no energy more captivating than one that rests entirely in its own gravity. This is what men often misunderstand. They chase women who sparkle, who entertain, who bend, but they remember the one who doesn't. the one who looks at them with still eyes and a heart no longer desperate to be seen, because she already sees herself. She's not waiting for a pedestal. She's built her own temple within. And in that temple, she has sanctified her suffering. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment where her worth was questioned, she has transmuted it into gold. Psychological alchemy. The transformation of pain into wisdom, silence into speechless strength. She has become her own guide, her own anchor. She doesn't need the storm to know she is the sea. Carl Jung wrote of the anima, the feminine image dwelling in the male unconscious, often projected onto women. And it is the calm woman, the individuated woman, who exposes the distance between his projection and her reality. She is not his dream. She is the truth beneath it. She forces him to see where he's still split, still at war with his own vulnerability, still afraid of surrender, not to her, but to himself. She becomes the test, not because she demands it, but because her presence alone requires it. Her energy asks, can you meet me in depth? Can you hold yourself without using me as your mirror? Can you face your shadow as I have faced mine? Most cannot, and they recoil. They call her cold, distant, too much. But what they really mean is, I am not ready for a woman who cannot be controlled. Because she doesn't respond to fear. She doesn't react to guilt. She doesn't bend to shame. Her boundaries are not a threat. They are a declaration. I belong to myself first. If a man is brave enough to stay, he will feel his own depths tremble. Not because she breaks him, but because she awakens him. The calm woman does not push. She simply is. And in that being, she confronts every mask he wears. She makes the noise in his mind unbearable because she does not fill the void. She lets it echo. And in that echo, he is left to meet himself. Not the version he shows the world, but the one hiding behind achievements, behind validation, behind performance. She draws out the part of him he's kept buried, the tender, fearful, wounded boy who never learned how to love without control. She doesn't heal him. That's not her role. She reveals him. And if he is wise, he'll thank her. Not for staying, but for showing him what it means to stand alone and still be whole. That is her gift. Her calmness is a mirror of potential. This is what peace looks like when it is no longer afraid of being alone. You, listening now, may feel this unfolding within yourself. You may have spent years giving your energy to those who could not hold it. You may have confused your empathy with obligation, your loyalty with sacrifice. You may have believed that to be loved, you had to be needed. But now, something is shifting. You no longer rush to explain. You no longer perform your softness to be palatable. You have discovered the power of your no, the magic of delayed response, the liberation of choosing not to engage in what does not align with your soul. And this isn't bitterness, it's maturity. It's the result of countless inner deaths and rebirths, of walking away when every trauma in your body begged you to stay, of realizing that love without respect is not love, it is dependency. And dependency is not sacred, it is survival. You are no longer surviving. You are arriving into yourself, into your sovereignty, into the calm that no one gave you, that no one can take. This is your power. This is the new feminine, the woman who leads not with performance, but with presence, not with control, but with clarity. The woman who sits in silence, not because she has nothing to say, but because she no longer needs to shout to be heard by those who are incapable of listening. And if they walk away, let them. Your worth is not determined by those who fail to witness it. Your calm is not emptiness. It is full of everything you've reclaimed, everything you've remembered, everything you've risen from. The woman who becomes calm after chaos is not the same woman who once begged for love with trembling hands. She is now a woman of depth, of internal clarity that no longer seeks reflection in someone else's validation. Her calm is not the beginning of submission, it is the end of illusion. She has crossed the threshold where emotion is no longer a weapon or a currency. She is no longer at war with herself, and therefore no longer at war with love. Men sense this shift immediately, though most cannot name it. They feel the stillness in her presence and mistake it for distance. But it is not detachment, it is discernment. She has learned that energy is sacred, and now she no longer gives it to anything or anyone that asks. She gives only where it grows, only where it is returned in equal spirit. And if it is not, she walks, not with resentment, but with grace. This is not indifference. This is divinity, This is the woman who no longer apologizes for being too quiet, too intense, too intuitive, too discerning. She knows that people will name what they don't understand as too much, when in truth, it is too real for their illusions to withstand. She does not shrink to fit their projections. She does not contort her softness into comfort. She does not betray her intuition just to keep someone beside her. She has watched how people speak of strong women as though they are trophies, until those same women no longer play small, until they say no without explanation, until they walk away in silence rather than beg for scraps. Then suddenly she is cold, heartless, hard to love. But this woman has learned, when your strength threatens someone's control, they will always reframe your power as a flaw. So she lets them talk. She is not here to be understood by those still trapped in ego. She is not here to convince the unready that she is worthy. She is not here to soften her fire for those afraid of being burned. She is here to live in truth, to honor the quiet power of feminine depth, to embody the very thing the world tried to kill in her knowing. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the hidden part of ourselves we repress, the rage, the fear, the longing, the hunger for control. The calm woman has faced these shadows. She has walked through them. And in doing so, she has become something more dangerous than any emotional outburst could ever be. She has become whole. Wholeness is threatening because it cannot be manipulated. It does not seek completion in someone else. It is not fragile. It is not reactive. It simply is. And that is what makes her presence so disarming. She no longer wears the mask of sweetness to be accepted. She wears the truth, even when it is misunderstood. You, listening now, may feel this stirring inside you. A pull to stop explaining yourself. A pull to sit with your silence and not run from it. To listen to the voice inside that whispers, you are already enough. You no longer need to perform to be loved. You no longer need to compete to be seen. You no longer need to carry what was never yours to hold. And you will lose people. That is part of the path. The woman who becomes calm will outgrow many things, relationships, roles, routines, because she no longer vibrates at the frequency of drama. She no longer feels alive in chaos. That old addiction to being chosen, to being needed, to being useful, she has weaned herself from it. Now she needs only one thing, her own truth. And in that truth, she becomes untouchable. Not because she is guarded, but because she is aware. Not because she lacks emotion, but because she has mastered it. Her emotions no longer rule her, they inform her. She feels deeply, but she acts wisely. She sees clearly, but she speaks only when it serves. This is not repression, it is refinement. So when he comes back, because he always does, what he finds is not the woman he left. He finds someone who no longer waits, who no longer needs to be chosen, who no longer aches to be seen. And in that space, he realizes too late, it was never her presence that was overwhelming. It was his inability to meet her there. She has already moved beyond the need for closure. She has become her own answer. She has become her own peace. And now her calm is no longer a strategy. It is a state of being, a state of power, a state of womanhood that cannot be shaken because it was not built on someone else's approval. It was forged in fire and silence and solitude. She no longer clings to potential. She no longer writes poetry from pain and calls it love. That chapter has closed. What remains now is devotion, not to others, but to her own becoming. Because the calmest women have lived 1,000 deaths inside their hearts. They have watched dreams die quietly in their hands. They have forgiven those who never apologized. And they have risen, not with vengeance, but with vision. This is the woman who once pleaded with life to see her, to hold her gently, to choose her over the chaos. And when life refused, she stopped begging. She turned inward. She met the parts of herself no one else had the courage to hold. The small girl with the cracked voice, the woman who stayed too long in places that shattered her, the version of herself that gave away her soul piece by piece just to feel a little less invisible. She gathered them all, piece by piece, breath by breath. And she said to herself, "We are done bleeding for those who never learned how to hold us." From that vow came the calm. From that vow came the danger. You see, danger is not always the roar of a lion. It is sometimes the silent step of a woman who has nothing left to lose. The woman who doesn't need your promises, your fantasies, your future. She has her own rhythm now, one that does not tremble in the presence of absence. one that does not crumble when love withdraws. She is self-sourced, and that, in a world built on female dependence and male approval, is revolutionary. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, the journey to wholeness, requires that we confront the unconscious, that we shine light into the darkness, not to erase it, but to integrate it. The calm woman has done this. She no longer rejects the part of herself that once begged. She loves her. She honors her. But she does not return to her, because evolution demands departure. And you, yes, you listening, perhaps you are feeling the same pull, to stop romanticizing suffering, to stop calling your longing intuition when it is really unhealed attachment, to stop confusing survival patterns for love. This is not weakness, it is awakening. This is your call to calm, not the numbness of repression, but the serenity that arrives when you finally understand. You do not need to chase what is already yours inside of you. And from this calm, miracles begin to form. You notice the beauty in your solitude. You feel whole in your own arms. You stop waiting for messages, for apologies, for closure that was never meant to come. You no longer need to be seen to believe you exist. You no longer need to be wanted to feel desirable. The game changes when your worth is no longer on the table. Now, you choose, with discernment, with intuition sharpened by pain, with a gaze that sees through masks, through charm, through empty charisma. You no longer fall for potential. You recognize soul from projection. You understand that the masculine will either rise to meet your depth or flee from it. And either way, you stay rooted. Because the calm woman does not rage when love flees. She does not threaten. She does not beg. She simply withdraws her energy like the tide, quiet, undeniable, final, and that absence is louder than any scream. They remember her not because she performed, but because she didn't. Because she held her silence when her heart was cracking. Because she walked away while still loving. Because her dignity meant more than her desperation. She leaves men haunted, not by who she was, but by who they could have become beside her. And that is the essence of her danger. She awakens a man to his own lack. Not because she blames, but because her wholeness reflects his fragmentation. She doesn't attack his ego. She makes it obsolete. She doesn't play the game. She dissolves the board. And once a man has tasted this kind of presence, this kind of calm, he will spend the rest of his life looking for it in women who still perform for his affection. But he will not find it, because this calm cannot be faked. It cannot be seduced. It is earned, in solitude, in sorrow, in silence. It is the mark of a woman who has turned her wounds into wisdom and her longing into light. She no longer speaks to be understood. She speaks when it is necessary. She no longer smiles out of politeness. She smiles when her soul is at peace. Her time is not freely given. It is sacred currency. Her attention is not a reward for cleverness or charm. It is a mirror for depth. She has stepped out of the collective trance that told her she had to be everything for everyone, and instead she has become everything for herself. When she walks into a room now, it is not her appearance that draws the most attention. It is the unshakable energy of a woman who no longer needs validation to exist. She does not compete. She does not compare. She does not cling. She does not belong to the world of noise. She belongs to herself. And when a man meets her, he knows instantly. This is not someone he can manipulate, fix, or forget. To those who are unconscious, she will appear cold, unreachable. But in truth, she is clarity embodied. She sees through the games, the hot and cold, the flattery, the manipulation dressed in romance. She sees it all and simply chooses not to engage. Not because she is bitter, but because she is beyond it. This is what Jung meant by individuation. The soul's return to its center, no longer fragmented by the ego's endless grasp for control and affection. This woman has made that journey. She has wept. She has screamed into pillows. She has cracked open under the weight of betrayal. But she did not stay broken. She picked up the pieces, not to rebuild who she was, but to remember who she has always been. She is no longer interested in being the best woman a man has ever had. She is devoted to being the most whole woman she has ever been. She is not the prize. She is the path, a rite of passage, a reflection of the work he has or hasn't done. And here lies the paradox. The calmer she becomes, the more they chase her. But now she watches them run in circles, unaware that she is not moved by noise, not impressed by grandiosity, not seduced by potential. If his presence is not peace, she will not open. If his energy is not grounded, she will not stay. If he cannot hold her in her quiet, he will not earn her in her passion. She has become a living threshold, a mirror that reveals, a silence that tests, a love that liberates or devastates, but never deceives. To love her now is to rise. Not because she demands it, but because her energy allows for nothing less. She will not fight for a place in a man's life, because she has already fought for a place in her own soul, and that battle, once won, makes her untouchable. If you are becoming her, know this. Your stillness is not weakness. Your silence is not emptiness. Your calm is not absence. You are not cold. You are not hard. You are sacred, and not everyone can meet you there. Let them go. Let the ones who only loved your wounds fall away. Let the ones who only stayed when you performed your pain retreat. Let the ones who tremble at your peace disappear into the noise from which they came. You are no longer responsible for holding together what was never meant to hold you. You are not here to soothe broken egos or be a landing place for unhealed men. You are here to embody the woman you prayed you'd become when you were still bleeding in silence. And now you've become her. The woman who speaks few words but leaves lasting echoes. The woman who is soft without surrendering her strength. The woman who knows her worth in a room full of those who do not. The woman who no longer breaks at the absence of love because she is love in its most undiluted form. This is the final threshold, the rebirth. Not into a new version of someone else's ideal, but into the most complete, most sovereign, most dangerous form of yourself. You are not dangerous because you destroy. You are dangerous because you no longer accept anything that isn't true. And the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.